Hello and welcome to Three Men and an SCI, where lived experience challenges convention and science meets reality. We are Barry Munro, John McAleavey, and Sasha Rabchevsky, three men living with chronic spinal cord injury who've spent decades immersed in the world of SCI as researchers, advocates, educators, and survivors. This podcast was born from a simple truth. Those living with SCI are too often talked about, but rarely listened to. Academic researchers may excel in the lab, but they are not trained nor qualified to dictate translational priorities for human lives based solely on rodent models. It's time to reframe the conversation. In Three Men and an SCI, we'll explore real-world issues, the good, the frustrating, the unspoken. From acute trauma to chronic care, from bladder and bowel management to the everyday realities of spasms, pain, and pressure sores. We'll discuss strategies, not just symptoms, and invite second opinions where the system shuts doors. We'll shine a light on what's missing, like the alarming lack of neurological expertise in emergency settings, something we call the code SCI-ER crisis. And yes, we'll take on the hype. Neuralink, BCIs, stem cells, and cures. Is it real promise or just noise? We'll ask tough questions and talk through what's actually possible today without sugarcoating or selling hope. You'll also hear why nonprofits play a pivotal role, offering tools, ideas, and engagement strategies that academia simply can't. Together, we'll cut through the noise, challenge assumptions, and push for change that matters. Our first episode will introduce who we are, why we care, and what this podcast aims to do. From there, each 40-minute episode will spotlight a key topic, starting broad, then diving deeper, always guided by lived experience and focused inquiry. We're here to talk with you, not at you. To inform, not dictate. And most of all, to bring the spinal cord injury community back to the center of its own story. So without further ado, let me welcome in the boys, Barry and Sasha. Hello, gentlemen.
Great, thanks. How you doing?
Well, we figured what we would do in our first episode is take you through a day in the life. You know, what we do from the morning to the afternoons to what we do work-wise and family life and whatnot. So why don't Barry Munro, why don't you start and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, thanks, John. Well, great to be part of this and really share a bit of what we've been through, and hopefully through this process that over time, really people might pick up a few things that they might not know, but especially people that are newly injured. I myself was injured in 1987, as you know, and it's been 38 years for me, and I'm living just north of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And so there are sometimes weather issues in the wintertime. I know you all think we're living in igloos, but we're not. But the thing is, I've had a great run, and I'm still looking forward to keeping going with my health and everything else. But my day really starts off with, as a C5-6 quad, is that I'm dependent on a caregiver to get me up and out of bed. So in the morning, someone comes in, they help. I have a leg bag and urinary. I have a cath. I have an indwelling catheter. We're just being candid here, folks. I get disconnected, then connected, put the pants on, up I go. Help in the bathroom a little bit, get dressed, and then help with my meal management, and then off I go for the day. Now, on other days, Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, and many quads know what that means out there. That's sort of a bowel routine day. We can talk about that later, but
sure will.
That's a longer morning with care. And I do bowel and then shower, and then I'm up and at 'em doing that. My day is fairly full. I'm very fortunate that I still work. I'm currently with the Canadian Spinal Research Organization. I run that organization, and I put a lot of time in also as treasurer of the North American SCI Consortium. I'm an attorney by trade, but I delve into that here and there, but usually try to use those skills in my daily living and what I do there. I do drive, so I'm fortunate that I have a van that's equipped for me to drive and gives me a chance to be mobile. And that's, I come and go when I can. As many quads out there know, in the summertime, you can't keep me inside. And in the wintertime, you can't get me outside. So it's really a matter of managing with weather too, because as a quad, temperature is always an issue too. We can get too hot in the summer, and of course, we're perpetually cold for 8 months of the year sometimes. In fact, I've been on Zoom calls with people in different parts of North America where we're laughing. It's like May or June. It doesn't matter where we live, that we still have a little heater at our desk keeping us warm, which is crazy. And then also we're battling in the summertime with air conditioning. It's just too cold. But that's about being sedentary. When you're just sitting in one spot, you do with the circulation you do to get a little cold over time. But I've had chances to travel with conferences, and that's a challenge. And that could be another topic, John, one day I think we can get into.
Sure.
So as my day goes on, I carry that through the day, and then settle down in the evening, take my time. Either I'm out doing some wheeling for exercise. I go to the gym when I can, and just try to keep things moving, so to speak. And then again, at night, it all goes the opposite way. I need someone help with a lift, put me in bed, help get me undressed, and then that's my night. And then again, just to emphasize, as my level, I'm not independent when it comes to transfers, so I do require someone helping me in and out of bed or on and off the commode all the time. So that's part of my life that I've had to learn to live with. And the one thing I just wanted to leave with you was when I had my spinal cord injury, it was the end of spontaneity for me. You cannot live a spontaneous life if you require a daily regimen of care all the time, even to the point of how you eat your meals or don't eat your meals and what's prepared for you. So that's something you have to sort of learn to accept, or at least put into your routine and how you do things. Some people have living caregivers. Some people have family members. I myself have that for backup, but the reality is I have someone come in, people come in the evenings or in the mornings, and that's all scheduled. So something that really is one of the biggest changes that I had to go through after my injury is that I lost the spontaneity of things. And again, we'll get into it later, but that's where your bowels sort of rule the day, and things like travel. You have to really over plan and make sure that you're ready for things. So you do become a planner after a spinal cord injury. And if you're going to be successful, at least getting through the day, you have to make sure you're on top of that and you have the right people around you. And I'm fairly fortunate that I've had that opportunity. So, John, that in a nutshell, that's my day.
Excellent. And I thank you for sharing. And I have to second that emotion on the spontaneity going right out the window when you have a spinal cord injury. I mean, you can't plan really or you have to plan everything out. I almost feel like, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with the film, but Groundhog's Day, where you live the same day, you wake up and do the same thing over and over and over again. And that's sort of how I feel. And so why don't we turn our attention now to you, Sasha? Why don't you take us through a day in the life?
Day in the life of Sasha. Well, a typical day. I'm a T5. And see, again, isn't it interesting, by the way, I got to do that for a second. Isn't it interesting how we introduce ourselves? We introduce ourselves, particularly about injuries, levels. The reason why I say that is in society, wouldn't it be strange if somebody just came up to you and you're able-bodied and say, "Excuse me, can you tell me the worst thing that ever happened to you in your life?" Like, you know what I mean? But yeah, that's what we're confronted with, because we have a physical disability that people feel societally they are allowed to come in and ask because they feel better about being inquisitive. I don't want to digress too much more. But anyway, having said that, normal days would involve getting up and typically would be done routines. Using visual stimulation, and that's when things are working well and going well. And then after that, driving to work, using a van. I now have a van. Used to have a sports car for many, many years, but just getting older and wiser, less rambunctious. and more practical, obviously. And go to work. I'm working at the University of Kentucky as a professor in physiology department. So going there to teach and lecture and do research and attend seminars and things of this nature. And my typical day is, kind of boring, to be honest with you, because it's a lot of, routine stuff in a building. But then I will have to digress in a moment for a second. But typically, to go through the day, and then I typically after work, I like to try to do something physical, exercise-wise, hand cycling, or I have fortunately, I was able to construct a gym downstairs in my house because I stopped going to public places during COVID, so I just had to adapt and do that. But I will say that's, and then in the evening, by the way, I think something that Barry missed is the food for me. I live alone, so I basically always have to plan for food, which is really kind of a thing that, you put in, what goes out is what you put in, and you have to make sure that it's all proper and done well, and you got a high fiber diet, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And then in the evenings, I just basically, relax. I do have a standing frame. I like to stand a lot at home as much as possible. I forget the name of the company right offhand, but it's a standing frame where you get to stand for a while, and I have like a desk on top, a desk plate where I can, have papers and read and write while I'm standing. And that's very therapeutic for me. Now, why I said that I digress is because that was my normal routine for many, many years, decades. I recently had to undergo and elect a colostomy, which to divert things from my anus. In other words, now I have to poop in a bag, as they say. Mm-hmm. This happened 40 years after my accident. So again, a long time with coming to accustom. So the difference is that when I wake up in the morning, without getting too belaboring, is that overnight, typically I have things expel into the bag, and I get up in the morning and I get rid of the bag and I change it, which is not fun, but makes it much easier from the standpoint of being able to see and reach and things of that nature. And then and the next aspect that is kind of like I'm still working on is that because things changed with me, and I also had another operation to remove part of my duodenum, is that my GI has changed so that what I have to do every morning is I can't just get up and head to work. I actually have to hang on a bar for a little bit, do some little exercises to get my remaining stuff that's in my belly out because I don't have a sphincter like I did before. It's just in a bag. And so it's all new to me, but I will say that it has changed my life. I'm still living because of it. And that we can go into another conversation. Mm-hmm. But in other words, that's a typical day for me. I know that sounds kind of graphic to say at the end, but then again, I'm alive because of it. And I want to just put out there to people who are listening that I don't like it. I didn't like it. I don't think I will ever say that it's something I wanted, but it saved my life and it makes it a lot easier as colostomy. Mm-hmm. And I wish that maybe 20 years ago, maybe even 40 years ago, mm-hmm. somebody had told me much more convincingly, because really they don't really give it to you as an option immediately because there's so much trauma that you're going through. The last thing you want to do is have an operation to put yourself an artificial sphincter or whatever. But in hindsight, I wish at least I had been more aware of it so that when it didn't come down my road, it wasn't such a traumatic experience, because It was. Mm-hmm. But anyway, that's a day in my life. So what about you, John?
Yeah, well, you are certainly not alone in that aspect. I know that there are so many different ways to take care of stuff like that. And for me, my typical day is I can void on my own. I know when I have to go. My biggest problem is that I can't necessarily completely empty my bladder. So I am always constantly looking at the clock every 4 hours. If I don't have to go, I go into the bathroom and I can jump around and hit myself and make myself go. But to start the day, I'm able to, I can get in and out of bed on my own. Thank God. It's getting a little bit harder the older I get, but I'm able to get in and out of bed. At nighttime, I don't know when I have to void, so I wear a condom catheter. And so I have a bag.
I do too. I do too.
Yeah. So I
too.
have a bag on the side of the bed, and so I have to get up, and it's amazing. I didn't know this, but they told me that whatever you see in the bag, there's still more in you. It's just overspill that's coming out.
Right.
And so when I get up, I stand on the side of my bed, and while I still have it on, I will make myself go. I'll sort of jump around and hit my midsection, and I'll be able to get a heck of a lot more out. And then from there, I'll unhook. I go over to the bathroom, get all that cleaned up and taken care of, and then I can head over to either take a shower. I can get in and out of the shower on my own. Thank goodness. I can clean up. My biggest issue is with the lack of arm use, being a central cord syndrome, is actually getting like a soap on one of those scrunchies and actually getting it into my armpits. I can't necessarily get in there, so that's always the hassle is doing that. And so take a shower.
So John, are you sitting or standing when you take a shower?
I stand. Yeah, I stand all of the time. Wow. Yeah, so I'm on my feet basically from the minute
but you got grab bars and stuff.
Sasha, again, because my arms really do nothing for me, I can't really hold on to anything. So
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I have to be really careful that I don't lose my balance. I sort of like lean up against the wall just to make sure that I'm sort of grounded.
Gotcha.
And so I'm able to do that. I shave I use an electric razor, and then whatever that doesn't clean up, I'll get the old straight edge out and take care of that. And then getting a robe on to dry myself off. That's a chore. You should see that. I should put a camera in here and watch how all of this goes. It's so hard to do any of this. And from there, I head over and I'm able to get dressed on my own. Thank goodness. I use a dressing stick now. So basically what I'll do is I'll take my pants and I'll throw them on the floor, and then I sort of step into them with my feet, and then I grab the dressing stick that's got a hook on it, and I pull it up from there. I have the arm strength to pull them up, and I do that, and then I'm able to get a shirt over my head. It's gotten a heck of a lot harder. I used to blow through it 30 years ago. It would be easy to get it on, but I'm able to do that. I live at home with my mom, and so the two of us are here, and she's in her 80s now. So over the years, she's been a heck of a lot more of a help. But since she's slowing down now, it's kind of like I'm learning to do more things on my own. As far as like food prep, I can get stuff out of the fridge and have some yogurt and have some fruit and do that type of a thing. I can make a mean peanut butter and jelly sandwich and have some cold cuts and stuff, and put lunches like that together. I work twice a week at Kessler Institute for Rehabilitation up here in West Orange, New Jersey. I'm the peer mentoring coordinator. Which means I speak with the newly injured folks that are with us to see if they have an interest in talking to. We have a number of gentlemen and ladies on a roster who have been through Kessler and are back living in the community and thriving and having productive lives. And we can bring some of those folks. Will come in and they can sit down and chat with the newbies, if you will. Just to see if they have any questions or concerns or ideas, and tell them it's one thing to talk to your doctors and your therapists, even your family members, but they're all able-bodied, and it's to get another perspective on people who have actually been in your shoes. So we bring folks like that in. We have really good encounters with that, and from there I'm able to drive also. In fact, I just got a new car. It took about almost a year to have it retrofitted and fixed up. And thank goodness for the Division of Vocational Rehab, DVR. I think that's something maybe we could talk about down the road. I had a lot of expenses went into it, and thank goodness they picked up all of them. It was almost $100,000 worth of equipment that had to go in the car. And that's on top of what I had to pay for the car, which was almost $50,000 that I paid out of my own pocket. And so I drive, which is great. And my old car was almost 20 years old. So by that point, the radio really wasn't working any longer. I couldn't make phone calls from the car anymore. And so now I feel like I'm living in the 20th century or 21st century or whatever it is, because I can make calls and I can accept calls, and I don't have to touch anything, it just picks it up, and it's all hands free. So that's really great. And then once I get home after dinner and conversation with mom or my other family members that are here, I'm an avid sports fan. I'd love to delve into whatever sport of the day is. The baseball playoffs are coming around the bend right now, so I'm interested to watch I'm a Boston Red Sox fan. My dad grew up loving Ted Williams, and so I kind of inherited that love. And unfortunately, I'm a New York Football Giants fan, and we've been pathetic for a number of years.
I'm a Redskins, Commanders fan. So
okay, yeah. Well, they'll always be the Redskins to me. I don't think I'll ever call them the Commanders. That just is.
Well, if we're up to Trump, we could rename them back, right?
That's right. That's right. And
hey, Johnny, just hang on. You tell your Red Sox just to hold off a little bit. They're not going to win the division. You don't want the Yankees winning the division. Let the Jays win the division. That's the plan.
There you go.
That's the plan.
I'm all for that, because I wouldn't root for the Yankees if they played the Russians. That's how much we don't like the Yankees around here. And so that would be a day in the life. Other than that, I've been recording a podcast for 5 years. It's called the Quadcast. And for those of you that are interested in hearing stories about other folks like us, I urge you to check out my website. It's www.quadcast.org. And if you have a unique story and have had a spinal cord injury, I'd love to talk with you if you want to reach out for me there. And that about does it for my day in the life. And it's interesting how 3 gentlemen with spinal cord injuries have sounded like 3 different regimens, right, guys?
Yeah, completely. Yeah. Well, I mean, similar in the sense that like Barry said, you have to have a strategy. You have to have things, and you have to have a backup of a backup plan. Mm-hmm. And for each one of us, I feel privileged because of, quote unquote, I have the most ability, if you want to call that, right, of the 3 of us,
right,
in the sense that I'm a different as far as independence. But man, I'm going to tell you what, there's a tax for that, and I don't have a care person with me. I don't. And so there are some times where I wish I did. Yeah. And I don't have a significant other. So woe is me. But wait a minute, is that fair? Like to anybody who's got a disability, just because you don't happen to have a loved one, it's a real psychological twister. So anyway, I want to take this moment, if we could, because Barry's very, something that, because both of you are as you say, tetraplegic and I'm paraplegic. Barry, I'm just wondering, one thing that's common to you and I that, John, I'd like you to comment is about skin integrity and pressure wounds and things of that nature. John, I would imagine for you that may not be, so because you're standing in the shower or whatnot. Do you have pressure issues?
Luckily for me, I don't have them, and I never did. I remember when I was an inpatient at Kessler doing my rehab, they would come around every couple of hours in the middle of the night and roll me on different sides to make sure that I wasn't, laying too long in a certain spot. But thankfully for me, I've been able to kind of scoot, boogie around in bed for all these years that I don't have that problem. And I'm on my feet a lot of the time. So I, knock on wood, skin issues have not been a problem for me. But I know working in and around Kessler, they are really, really big. And in fact, there's a young man that's with us now who was injured in an automobile accident. And while he was in the acute care hospital, you would think, and again, this will be a topic we're going to hit down the road, you would think that they would know better than to think about issues like that. But he got a nasty wound while he was in the acute care hospital. So he came to us with a bad wound. And so it's kind of set his therapy back because he's not able to do some stuff. And so that's a perfect an opportunity to dovetail into the skin management, as you mentioned, Sasha. And so I know, Barry, you've had an issue just recently or within the last, calendar year or so, with skin problems. So could you tell us about that? And then Sasha, you could dovetail on the end of that with some of your impressions over the years.
Okay.
Sure. It's interesting. I've been, knock on wood, fairly fortunate with skin over time, but I've had my issues over the years, and my main skin issues were related to foot ulcers, which is somewhat common, can be with people with lived experience and spinal cord injury. And I had an incident years ago where it was how I was sitting. It was clearly my sitting that was putting pressure on my foot. what eventually evolved into a pressure sore. This is the part that's interesting. For people that have zero sensation below their lesion, and me being one of them, you rely on autonomic dysreflexia, which you call AD. And it's the warning signs. I was sweating and my blood pressure was spiking, but I couldn't identify what it was. Mm-hmm. And this was 15 years ago. And eventually a sore was discovered on the bottom of my foot. And then it was dealt with afterwards. But the same problem just recently occurred with me. And this is also part about, again, guys, this is going to be a theme throughout, but when you age with a spinal cord injury, things change. And so you get used to doing things a certain way and managing things a certain way for almost 20 years. And then like a light switch, they change. And what was happening with me this summer was my feet were swelling more than usual. As you know, in the summertime, we tend to get more edema or swelling of the feet because of the heat. But this year it was just a little bit more than usual. And what happened was I ended up getting a pressure ulcer on the back of my one foot, my right foot, which
on the heel?
I dealt with.
On the heel?
On the heel. It was on the heel. So now what we did was, I wore a lot of flip-flops, did that and managed it, and it kind of went away. And I thought it was fine. And it turns out, again, the swelling was still an issue. And I was attending a conference and I was wearing dress shoes, and I was commuting back and forth for a couple days there. And I started noticing, and I was in a different chair because my other chair is getting repaired, my backup chair. So again, I'm sitting differently. My feet are swelling. Okay, now I've set the stage. And I was starting to get these warning signs again. I couldn't figure it out. But what's interesting about this sore that it manifested, it's basically a pressure ulcer / blister on the ball of my right foot underneath my foot. And it was my attendant, a care person, that actually discovered it one morning. But it wasn't that people weren't seeing it. It manifests itself, meaning it's below the surface. People don't see some of these pressure sores, and then they just kind of erupt. And that's what happened. So now I'm going with a regular routine with, we have like a wound care clinic that I'm attending, 2 or 3 times a week, changing bandages, and just keeping an eye on things, and things are good. And the one thing that, I was taught, and I want to share with everybody else out there, is you take these things very seriously. You have to, because what might seem like a small thing could turn into infection, which could turn into sepsis. And sepsis itself is absolutely dangerous and considered one of the major causes of death of people with spinal cord injury. And most of these incidents of sepsis evolve from an infected pressure sore. So it doesn't matter what part of the body it is. I'm just letting people know it's something you just got to deal with right away, especially if it's on your buttocks and something that you're sitting on all the time. Because if you don't manage it, it just gets so much worse. But I haven't gone down that road, and I know, Sasha, you have, and I'd love to hear how you got through all this, because it's not easy.
Yeah. Well, before I do that, I'd like to just echo that I have a friend of mine out in Colorado who for years had a foot wound, not a pressure wound in his bum, mind you, in his foot, like yourself. He was able-bodied, doing everything. He's very agile, doing things. He's a paraplegic. But again, he had that wound almost for 3 years before he finally decided to do something about it, and it changed his life because he didn't have to do, like you say, Barry. I want to echo. You were talking about bandage changes. People that, bandage, big deal. Bandage changes, you have to have people do it for you. You have to have it arranged. It's got to be proper. It's not just simply like going into the store, CVS, and getting yourself a pack of stuff and doing it yourself. So so dovetailing into what I experienced, I had initially, John, you had mentioned about early stages after injury. Yes. I actually also was not treated properly and I had a pressure sore from the injury, from the motorcycle accident I was in, that was unremarkable, I guess is what they termed it. And so I was on a stretcher for 17, 18 hours before they even did anything. And then when they did, they realized that I already had decubitus. So I had already had pressure. So they put me on a bed 24/7, that was moving, during my first week of, unconsciousness, I should say. I wasn't conscious, but because of the pressure relief. So right away, I already was introduced right after I came out of coma. Guess what? Your paraplegia, by the way, you got a bed sore, like right away. So I was early on conditioned and primed to not have that happen. And so this was 1985, my accident was. And so after healed up and did things, I was diligent through the years. I would get sometimes sores. Now, when I say sores, stage 1, meaning kind of like burns or not burns, scrapes and stuff that, over time it would go better. I would usually be treated with a bandage if I could. The other thing is difficult when you're paraplegic or quadriplegic is to be able to see your bum, to be able to identify where the wound is, to be able to actually treat it with, using mirrors and now cameras and stuff like that. It's kind of, it's daunting at times. And so I went through my adult life, 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, actually, without really experiencing early 50s, experiencing problems of skin breakdown, decubitus. But in 2023, I developed a pressure sore when I was doing a sabbatical in Canada, and I didn't have access because of the, insurance firewall to any medical care. So I was just treating my, traditionally with bandages and triple antibiotic ointments. And I got back, and finally, when I did get back to the States, and saw a doctor, it had already developed to what was termed as stage 3 wound. Now, stage 3 is already when it's deep and it's not bleeding, but it's already got a furrow in there, and that's not good. And so I was alerted. I was off of it, but here's where catch-22 comes in, guys. And we haven't really talked about much about the bowel program problems, but like I was having all the time incontinence for probably a year before that. Now, what I mean by incontinence, I was having bowel movements and stuff unvolitionally, without provoking, without digital stimulation, almost 2 times a day, 3 times a day, and I was using Depends to save my life. Mm-hmm. So just changing and taking showers and stuff, and then managing with enzymes that I found out later on were helping me for pancreatic deficiencies. So I had pancreatitis that I didn't know about, was undiagnosed. Long story short is that when I came back to the States and I had this minor pressure sore and I said, okay, I'm back here, I still had the fecal incontinence. And what happened was I got what you all termed just a second ago, sepsis. Wow. So I was home, feverish, couldn't get my head up until I lived alone. I had to force myself, because I talked to my doctor, so you got to get the ER. I'm like, ER? And you all know what I mean when I say ER is a paraplegic quadriplegic. You freak out because damn well it's like Dante's Inferno. Right. And so I'm sitting there going through all the paradigms of trying to figure out what I need to take with me, which is like 2-3 hospital bags full of stuff to go in there and basically be diagnosed with sepsis and have to go through all that, which maybe that's for another story. Let me get back to the wound. Is that the wound itself was already at stage 4, and they termed what I feared was called osteomyelitis. I don't know if you guys have heard that term before. I had, but not until it was diagnosed for me did it really make sense that my bones were already infected. Like not just the tissue, but the bones were infected with bacteria. Wow! And when they told me that, and the first thing I said was, "What kind of like what does that mean?" And they said, and I know that they're not supposed to give you rosy pictures, but they brought up amputation of my hip, and I'm just like freaking out. Like I brought myself into this place, and I know I'm not going to get out of here now. And so I was really, really kind of like grasping at reality about what was happening to me. I barely lived. I had to go to IV. Antibiotics. I was allergic to 5 different antibiotics that they were giving to me. So I was having for 24 hours just allergic reactions to everything they gave me. Meanwhile, they never did a culture on my debrided wound, so they could never really identify what they needed to give me for the antibiotics. So I had to get infectious disease involved. And meanwhile, because I'm alone. Like this is like nobody's, and I'm supposed to my charting my stuff in my head, trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. And very long story short, because this is almost a year and a half later, guys, Wow. I finally had surgery. Finally had surgery to close the wound. That's how long it took because there were a lot of other complications in between during that year period. But it's all healed now. Everything's fine. But man, like Barry said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Wow.
And when I talk about Band-Aid changes, Barry, brother, I hear you, man, because I was changing myself on my backside, and that's a hard thing to do. The nurses, doctors were kind of amazed at how did you do it? And I took videos of it because, I wanted people to learn that you can do this. But I don't wish it upon my worst enemy. So coming to this whole issue, why we're bringing this up is that I found during my period of time, while I was in the hospital, other friends of mine, contemporaries, people in wheelchairs, people with paralysis, who were also undergoing the exact same things for different reasons, going into hospitals and getting decubitus because of the poor care they were getting in the hospitals, or being put into convalescent homes where they weren't turning them rightly. And so instead of recovering from a shoulder surgery, they're back in the hospital because they have sepsis, because now they have C. diff or something that they caught. So it's for us, there's those really standard of care is a whole different standard because of all these other secondary complications. And so I don't really know what message I just got there, but it all came out like logorrhea there. But the point is that I got better. And I guess Barry had said it earlier, or maybe when we were talking before, self-advocacy, gentlemen, is the only way that people with spinal cord injury are ever really going to be able to get themselves through, especially during the hard times. Mm-hmm. Because it's amazing to me how naive and ignorant. Now, ignorant is a definition. It doesn't mean you're stupid. Ignorant doctors are about people with spinal cord injury and their needs. We've discussed this briefly earlier. Right. But I experienced it and documented it. I'm writing it all up because it's a travesty almost to realize that we have a system in which is throwing. And the other thing is this, gentlemen, you know this. We all spent time in rehab. Rehab that time is cut in a third now, maybe a fourth. Instead of going in for 2 or 3 months, at the most you're going in for 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And like and that's everybody. It's even cervical patients that get whisked off to certain cervical respiratory farms, they call them, because they're on respirator. They need ventilation. So they're you kind of don't even hear about them much because they're silent. They're not out in public. Right.
It's just not fair.
It's not fair. Thing.
Yeah. And anyway. So, well, I'm glad that you were both able to share your experience and your stories about skin management. It's so important. And I know that you probably both have some ideas on how we could get the word out more. I mean, whether it's in the emergency room folks or the acute care hospitals need to sort of brush up on.
Well, that's kind of something I like to talk about. Maybe in other casts is what I call code SCI. Yeah. For emergency rooms and stuff like that. To make sure that you understand that.
That's definitely going to be one of our topics, and I know that we're trying to keep these at a manageable time frame here. We're just about at 40 minutes. And so what we hope that you will come back and join us again next time. We've decided we went around the horn as to what our next topic will be. And it's actually going to be 2 topics in one. And it's my friends and I affectionately refer to it as the B&B boys. It's the bladder and the bowel management. And as you heard in our day in the life stories, we all manage things differently. And so you'll get 3 different perspectives on how we manage both our bowel and our bladder, and how we know that as longtime injured gentlemen, how just the bowel and the bladder basically have control over our lives rather than we have control over. They sort of dictate how our days are going to come and how our days are going to go. And so how you go about managing both of those situations is basically at the top of all of our lists. And so on the way out, Barry, any parting words that you would like to tell our listeners about what you hope is to come with this venture?
No, I think this is a great opportunity, and I can't express enough how fortunate I am to be talking with you guys, but more importantly, to the people that are listening. I found in the early days of my injury that the peer support of individuals, and I call that peer support, in that I just heard people that had been ahead of me in the game, so to speak, and learning about their day in the life and what they did. And I just hope that people listening to us can gain knowledge and eventually maybe avoid a situation that could be harmful or hurtful to themselves, and learn from our, frankly, our experiences and sometimes our mistakes.
Right. How about you, Sasha? Any parting words you would like to leave everybody with?
Just welcome to dialogue. I do want to make sure that I give a shout out to all our sisters out there. That we're three guys, and who are these three guys talking? They're not talking on our behalf, but I do know that there's sisters out there who put up with a lot more than we do. Okay,
right.
On a daily basis, and honestly, there are those out there. I'm not going to name them in this podcast, but that are inspirations to me that mean a lot to me. So just want to make sure that when we speak about this, we're not speaking to the guys. This is some kind of a guy cast. It's our perspectives, though, but understand, though, that we understand the sisterhood out there and the challenges they face as well. I just want to make sure that was understood.
Terrific. And I hope that everyone was able to get a little something from this initial venture, and we hope that you're going to stay with us and join us down the road. We're going to dive into a lot of different topics, as you heard in the intro. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and what we've sort of been through and come out the other side, and are thriving right now and enjoying how things are going. And so we urge you to check back with us, and if you have some questions or concerns or topics that you would like us to talk about, you can reach out for us in that respect. We'll get some email addresses out, and also you could check on that website that I mentioned earlier for my podcast, and you could shoot me some ideas if you have them. And so for Barry Munro and Sasha Rabchevsky, I am John McAleavey, and we look forward to talking with you next time.